Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today. I am extremely happy to welcome several great legislators from across the country. Thank you for joining us today's special event, Redistricting, the Texas fight spurring a national Democratic offense. As folks continue to make their way into the waiting room and into all the live streams, I will begin with a quick intro. My name is Aaron Stevens. I am the Senior Legislative Strategist for P Street, which is the government relations sister org of the Progressive Change Campaign Committee. I'm also the former mayor of East Lansing, Michigan. Go Green, for all my Michigan folks watching in the live streams. We are proud to welcome members of the media, PCCC members, and others across the nation, including all of those watching live on Occupy Democrats, the other 98%, and ACT TV. This call should serve as a warning to Texas Republicans who are trying to rewrite the rules, and in the process, they are starting a fight that they will not win. As lawmakers from Texas to Florida fight these efforts, pro-democracy lawmakers in states like New York and California are ready to fight fire with fire. We are joined by some incredible leaders from these states, and I know you'd like to hear from them instead of me, but I have a couple of quick housekeeping notes before we begin. If you have joined us in the Zoom call, please use the Q&A function on this call, and we will try to read out as many questions as we can. If you're a member of the media, we'd appreciate if you listed your outlet in your message. For those in the live streams, you can just put your questions in the chat. Who the question is for, maybe add the state that you're from, and our team will share them directly with me. You can start typing your questions now immediately, or you can submit one while you're listening to the remarks. With that, I will move on to some of our incredible folks here, and I will start with the incomparable Texas Congressman Lloyd Doggett. Mr. Doggett, thank you so much for joining us today. I'll hand the mic over to you.
Well, Aaron, thank you so much. And thanks also to Adam Green, along with Stephanie Taylor, always the voice of progress in Washington and across the country. This is a really key moment. And while you focus on Texas and Texas Republicans, and here in Texas, we like to say everything is bigger in Texas, this is bigger than Texas. And I'm pleased you have experts on from around the country, because what is happening in Texas is about to spread like a cancer across the country. Donald Trump, perhaps when he was talking to that evangelical group last year about how they wouldn't need to vote again once he got elected, he probably had in mind, or his minions did, events like that are happening right now. Not only is he messing with voting machines and voter rolls in places like Colorado, and ending the cybersecurity protection against foreign interference in our elections. But he's come right out and said, give me 5. I need 5 Republicans to replace 5 Democrats in the state of Texas, and I expect you to deliver it, even though in Georgia, Raffensperger didn't deliver me those 11,740 votes. It's really about the same kind of thing. And we saw yesterday that Missouri has the governor there is going to call a special session next month, directly aimed at our great friend Emmanuel Cleaver from Kansas City. And that today, and I'm sure we'll hear more from our colleague Representative Nixon, there was an announcement that in Florida, a redistricting committee that could be looking at eliminating 3 to 5 Democrats is going on there. Meanwhile, in California, we have some response. And I think what Governor Newsom and the California delegation is doing is really important. It may be that 2 wrongs don't equal a right, but when wrong is occurring in red states, a wrong of eliminating the Citizens Commission, which I've long supported in California, 2 wrongs can save our country. And that's what's at stake here. We have played fair in most Democratic states with one Citizens Commission after another, with limitations on mid-year redistricting, and the Republicans are not playing fair. And if we play by the separate standard, these separate rules, Trump will rule. This is all about giving him the margin he needs to have the same kind of compliant representatives in the House that will vote against any Reproductive Freedom Act, that will not help us save those people who turn to Obamacare and find their premiums have gone up 75% 3 months from now for next year, and so many other wrongs. With a Democratic Congress, of course, we can begin issuing subpoenas. we can affect the appropriations process, and we can set the agenda in the House of the issues that are going to be considered and the bills and the amendments that will be underway. Here in Texas, they are using every form of intimidation possible. Tomorrow, there's a little bit of an argument between our governor, who, and I would say to Representative Nixon, we lost out narrowly to you for the worst governor in America. But our governor is right up there at the top, too. And he is arguing with our sorry attorney general over which one of them should be taking the action to try to expel the chair of the House State Democratic Caucus, Gene Wu, and replace him with whoever the governor wants to put in his place, and to do the same with the other Democrats that have engaged in this quorum break. There are efforts with litigation to investigate Beto O'Rourke for what they call Beto bribes, that is, raising any money to support those who are on quorum breaks. Donna Howard, great colleague of mine from here in Austin, state representative, was to be on our call, but I just got an indication that some new effort has been filed against her and her colleagues personally a little while ago. They will stop at nothing to intimidate and to try to drag these representatives back. And what have they produced as a result of that? Well, they're trying to give those 5 seats to Trump that he asked for, with maps that have already been adopted in a House committee and are under consideration over in the state Senate. Those 5 districts, for example, eliminate the district of Mark Vesey, an African-American colleague from Dallas. They eliminate the district of Julie Johnson, a new LGBTQ leader, Anglo from Dallas. And where they don't eliminate districts, they make things extremely inconvenient. Jasmine Crockett, for example, had her house removed from the district. Greg Casar, who is my neighbor, who shares a district from Austin to San Antonio, while his district was made more Hispanic voting age population than it is today, they took the corner out from Austin, where he resides. And so we see them doing any and everything they can to empower Trump, and we have to push back. I would just close in saying that not every quorum break is successful, but I had the good fortune a few years back to participate in one, which was when I was in the state Senate. It was called the Killer Bees. And fortunately, we weren't called the Killer Cockroaches. And it was said they never knew when we were going to sting again. We were involved in some efforts on 4 fights, but we also hid out for about 5 days senators to prevent a bad election bill from passing, and we won. It is possible to win. It's much more difficult to win these days with the FBI, the federal law enforcement, and the state doing so much to intimidate a much larger group of House Democrats. I would say to your listeners, and I'll stay to listen for questions, of course, things you can do, or if you're in California or involved with California, praise this California effort. It is our best hope to checkmate Donald Trump for what's going wrong in Texas. And if you're in any state where there's a possibility of an attack by Republicans, Missouri, Indiana, Florida, of course, and several others, we need to activate every progressive voice to oppose the Texas plague from Donald Trump spreading across the country. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Representative Doggett. And again, just to reiterate, we were in fact going to have State Representative Donna Howard from Texas, who is currently out of state with the other Democrats fighting this good fight. And now, because I believe actions on the national level to maybe even potentially go after them with legal ramifications, she is not able to join. That is the fight we are up against at this moment, from not only the Texas state legislature but also the Trump administration. I'm going to move to State Senator Andrew Gounardes, a good friend of ours from New York, talk a little bit about the efforts that are going on in his state to also combat some of this in a pro-democracy Democratic state.
Thank you, Aaron, and thank you, Congressman, for your words and for inspiring us, all of us across the country, to be in this fight, because you're right. This is not just about Texas. This is about every state in our union, blue states and red states. This is a time for us to be fighting. Here in New York, some of you may have seen and heard the news that we are actively contemplating our own redistricting process as well. Our governor has been very vocal. In fact, she just had an op-ed published, I believe it was in the Houston Chronicle yesterday, basically saying we will be fighting fire with fire. We are not going to let this power grab by the Republican Party to do Donald Trump's bidding, to be his lapdog, to go unchecked. And we're going to do everything we can in New York to go through a constitutional change so that we too will be able to draw lines that will eliminate Republican seats. Now, many of you know that there are about 10 Republican seats in the state of New York. We are a blue as blue state, but they currently hold 10 seats. And some of those seats are what give the Republicans the bare majority that they have right now. You can kiss those seats goodbye. At least half of those seats can be utterly changed with redistricting that is still fair and balanced and appropriate, but does not give them the leg up and actually empowers the will of the overwhelming Democratic majority here in New York State to elect Democratic representatives of their choosing. And it's funny to me now how now you hear people like Mike Lawler and Nicole Maliotakis say partisan gerrymandering is bad no matter who's doing it. Well, they weren't saying that every time they voted against bills in the House to outlaw partisan gerrymandering. They're only saying that when they realize that it's their own hide on the line, and that if they continue to sit by quietly and watch this egregious power grab by their colleagues across the country to do their president's bidding, that they are going to lose their seats in Congress. And they are terrified at that prospect because that is all they have to hold on to. We're not buying it. We know what they're up to. We know what they're all about. And if we continue to go down this road, myself and my colleagues in the state legislature here in New York are ready to do every single thing we can to fight back and to make sure that we are fighting fire with fire. The congressman said it well. We as Democrats try to do the right thing. We try to uphold our values. We try to fight the principled fight. But when you're fighting someone who's fighting you down in the gutters, there's no longer the opportunity just to hold your head up high and fight the principled fight. Our democracy is at stake, and we're willing to do everything we can to protect it.
Thank you so much, Senator. And now we're going to go to State Rep Angie Nixon from Florida, who is currently facing the potential action by her own governor and her own state legislature following the lead of Texas. Representative, great to hear you. Great to hear from you. Well, I'm sure a lot of organizing is going on in the background. Would love to hear what the Dems are thinking on the ground here.
Yeah, for sure. So I think it's really important for us to level set at the fact that this is a broken system. The fight is bigger. It's much bigger than just a map. We're not fighting to go back to what we had. We are not here to protect the broken system that never really truly served all of us. We're actually here to demand a new vision, one that is reflective of the power and the diversity of Florida's people, of our country, and where our districts are drawn with our communities, not against us. And so I think it's important for us to know that the redistricting process, it's been rigged from the start, oftentimes to silence Black and brown people, and now more recently to also silence working class folks, and that is by design. This is actually about building a multiracial democracy that actually works for everyone, not preserving the status quo. And so what's happening here in Florida, as the congressman stated, Governor DeSantis has already erased a Black district, one that's connected working class Black communities across North Florida who shared a voice and a vision for their future. And now, instead of restoring fair representation, Florida Republicans are now calling for a special committee. I got that text message today on my phone, and it's not to fix the map, but it's to protect DeSantis and to delay justice in Florida. And so we already know what fair maps look like. The courts previously made that clear, and we don't need another committee. We actually just need action. And so that's what we're doing. We are partnering with some folks on August 16th, all across the nation. They are grassroots organizations are leading this fight. It's a national action on next Saturday. And that's why we're going to be joining people all across the country. We will not be erased. We won't be redrawn out of power. And we demand a democracy where every voice matters, from Florida to Texas to New York. To South Carolina. Our working class communities, our Black and brown communities are standing together to fight in this national fight. And this is our resistance. And if you're watching what's happening and you feel frustrated, you all should join us. You should join us, and your voice belongs in this fight as well. So go to Mobilize, go to Stop the Trump Takeover, in the Trump takeover, put that in the Mobilize account or Google that and you'll find locations, or you can throw up your own location yourself. You can host your own action. And I know that what we did last time and why we'll do it again is because we have to. When they tried to ram through the racist DeSantis map in 2022, when I was there in the legislature, I took to the House floor and led a peaceful protest. I refused to be silent alongside Representative Travaris McCurdy and many others joining later. And we protested right there in the chamber because our constituents were under attack and we wanted to let them know that we won't back down. And so we used our voices, we used our bodies, and we made it very, very clear that we won't be complicit in the destruction of our democracy. And I'm letting you know that even though we are now in the super minority in both chambers, in the Florida House and Senate, I'm ready to do it again because this isn't about politics. This is about people. And so again, I urge you all to join grassroots organizations all across the country on August 16th to stop the Trump takeover and push back and rebuild our democracy the way it should be for all people.
Thank you so much, Representative Nixon, and of course, really, really appreciate those efforts. Representative Kassar, thank you so much for joining us today. I know that you only have a limited amount of time, but we do really, really appreciate you getting on. I just got word that we have about 2,000 people watching so far and across the live streams, and that number's only going up. So I really, really appreciate it. I'm sure everybody else does too. I'll give you the floor.
Well, thanks so much. Thanks to all of our friends at P Street and in the progressive movement for being here. Proud to be joined by my friend and colleague here, Congressman Lloyd Doggett. We're in the real fight of our lives for our democracy right now. 60 years ago yesterday, President Lyndon Baines Johnson, a president from Texas, signed into law the Voting Rights Act and handed the pen to Dr. Martin Luther King. And he signed that law in order to ban the kinds of racially gerrymandered maps that Donald Trump is trying to ram through right now in Texas. And like so many generations before us have fought off these forces that have tried to get rid of the Voting Rights Act, suppress voters, suppress our democracy. Now the torch has been passed along to us to be a part of this fight because Donald Trump knows that he doesn't have a good plan to win the upcoming midterm elections. And so he has this plan to rig them. And if Donald Trump is able to shred the Voting Rights Act here in Texas, suppress voters here in Texas, call a governor to have him hand him 5 congressional seats here in Texas, we already know soon enough he wants to spread that across America. We saw J.D. Vance conspiring with the governor of Indiana today. Ron DeSantis saying he wants to do the same thing in Florida. He just announced that today. We've got to stop them in their tracks right now. And just like there were dark times in the 1920s, when the robber barons took over our government, the Elon Musks of their day, or in the 1960s, when the segregationists had a chokehold on Congress and things seemed at their darkest, that's when people mobilized and marched and stood up and were pissed off but peaceful and changed the course of our country. And that's the moment that I think we find ourselves in today, where we have the most corrupt administration in American history that can fire up a broad base of people across this country who think there should be accountability for an administration, and that administration should not be able to take billions of dollars in from crypto scams and from companies like Amazon for themselves. An administration should be able to get a $400 million bribe from a foreign government in the form of a plane and then not be held accountable. So this isn't just about the Democratic Party. This is about protecting the democratic process as we know it. And so everybody watching at home can play a role in this. We've got to mobilize our friends and neighbors against this corrupt power grab. If you live in a blue state with a blue governor, we need folks to follow Gavin Newsom's lead and be willing to fight fire with fire and threaten the seats of Republican members of Congress in blue states so that if they think they can come and get rid of those of us in Texas without a cost, they've got to think twice. And of course, if you're in a state like Texas, let's celebrate those brave democracy defenders that have broken quorum and who are buying us the needed time that we need to be able to fight back. Because if they're able to take out the Voting Rights Act in places like Austin, Texas, soon enough, that will spread across America. And I have enormous faith in the people on this call, on folks in the progressive movement to be able to fight this off. And once we send the Greg Abbotts and Donald Trumps of the world towards the dustbin of history where they belong, then I think it is a time for us to learn from this moment and not hesitate to deliver in big ways as a transformed Democratic Party that passes the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, bans gerrymandering nationwide, gets big money out of politics, bans super PACs, and gets rid of that kind of big money and special interest that helped get us to this place in the first place. We can't be back to where a Joe Manchin or a Kristen Sinema can block the needed reforms that can protect our democracy for generations to come. So we need to fight fire with fire, win back a majority, hold Trump accountable, and then do something with that majority so that we're never here again. Thank you all very much for having me.
Thanks so much for being here with us. So we had folks from our membership and across membership submit some questions beforehand for the folks on this panel. And actually a couple of questions were answered by, turns out we've got some great panelists here that preemptively answered some of the questions, but some great segues into some of our questions here from our members. So I've got a question from Chloe in Los Angeles, California. She says, I'm part of a campus organizing group focused on civic engagement. What's the most effective way that young people outside red states can show solidarity and actually influence these redistricting fights? I'll open that to anybody that wants to answer it here today.
I think they can play a really big role in this. This will be a referendum on the ballot in California in November if Governor Newsom can be successful in passing it through the legislature. Getting the youth vote in California, and young people across the country need to be engaged, but particularly in California, we have to win that referendum. It will be a costly referendum. In the meantime, of course, it is to be sure that your assembly member is going to vote in favor of having this one-time change in California's citizen redistricting. And it only becomes effective if bad things happen in Texas or elsewhere. So I think being out there, contacting members, organizing committees, planning to get the vote out in what otherwise might be a low turnout election in November will be absolutely critical. And university students and young people generally can play a vital role in making that successful. That is our very best chance in the entire country. One of the few chances we have actually to checkmate what Trump wants to do in Texas and elsewhere.
Yeah.
And Representative, oh, sorry, please go ahead. Representative
I would
Nixon.
also like to add, as someone who has a Generation Zer who just graduated from high school and is going off to college, I think what I see often is that she's on social media. And so I would say, like, just educating people, using your platform, make your little TikTok videos, tickety talks, and your Instagram videos, and let folks know how to be engaged as well. And like to really just create an echo chamber amongst folks that are your age, letting them know what they can do to stand up against this fascism that is spreading. Also, like doing old school organizing, making phone calls to folks, to not just members, but also to some youth, some young folks. It's different when a senior or a well-seasoned person like myself calls a young person. It's great when young people call young people and try to get them out to vote or get them to take charge and do some activism. So I would say getting involved and getting organized, as well as doing your thing on social media.
I have a question that is maybe for our Texas representatives that I think is an important one to ask. This is from Colleen in Tucson, Arizona. We are seeing a lot of news about Texas going on right now. It's very, very quickly. There's a lot of breaking news happening. What's the biggest misunderstanding people outside of Texas have about what's happening on the ground? And what would you want outside allies to know that's going on? I actually think that the news today that prevented Representative Howard from being here is another big mention of that. But some things that you wish that maybe the media was reporting on, but are not necessarily doing so. Representative Cassar or Doggett, yeah.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is it's bigger than Texas. It affects Arizona. It affects every part of the United States because it's all about Trump's power grab. If he gets enough people out of Texas, out of Florida, out of these other red states to maintain a majority in the United States House, we won't have subpoena power. We won't have the ability to influence the appropriations process, and we certainly can't make the progress that we need to make on the many issues that progressives care about. Beyond that, I would just say that this is not a Texas map. It didn't originate in Texas. It's not even our sorry Governor Abbott's map. It is Donald Trump's map that he handed down, never really discussed with much of anyone here. And now they are using every type of intimidation that they can at the federal and the state level. Our United States Senator asking the FBI to get involved, the Attorney General trying to throw out of office every Democrat that is absent from the state. They are only 4 Democrats away from having a majority here. So if they can just intimidate enough Democrats, then they get their majority and pass this. And then the big question is, will we be ready to fight Trump to try to prevent him winning all those 5 seats?
I would say, I think the media, because, just because of how the media reports things, is trying to not be alarmist. But if you read the stories about Texas as if you were reading stories about another country, think about if it was another country and the corrupt president of that country wanted to change the elections laws at the last minute, and he got a political ally to threaten to arrest using federal law enforcement the entire opposition party who's getting in the way, and even threatened to use the judicial system to expel the entire other political party from office. You would say democracy is on its last legs in that other country. But that's not some other country. That's the United States. That's what we're facing right now in Texas. And if you think about it that way, it shows the real urgency of this work, because we know that once they start going down that road, it can get much, much worse. And so this is what authoritarianism starts to look like. They're wannabe dictators, and we got to keep them wannabes and not let them further consolidate their power. This is about something much bigger than any one member of Congress. This isn't about any one of the state representatives or Congress members on this call. This is about the future of the country and what kind of country we want to be. And I think that gets lost in the political horse race. That gets lost in the traditional media. But if you think about it like that, it's just a really big risk that we should not be willing to take lightly.
That is
Thank
so
you.
very true. And I would just add, Aaron, I agree completely with that. I see that in the chat, Sarah has a card that people can sign and send to the Texans in Illinois. Whether you do that or some other way, they're making a real sacrifice to have left their homes and their businesses to be there. And it would be great to add to our list of actions you can take to let them know that the world cares about their defense of democracy.
Yeah, if I could opinionate for a second here, these are folks that are part-time legislators putting themselves at risk, and they are truly doing this because they love this country, they believe in democracy, and they believe in what they're doing. This is something where they are putting themselves, their families, their staff in an uncomfortable position. And they're doing it just because they love this country. So please do sign that card. We have a question from Bill Barrow from the AP. This fight spans the ideological and philosophical factions that have done plenty of finger pointing and grumbling on the left since November. Is this the clarifying, unifying moment that brings together progressives with the party establishment into a more effective opposition? How do the party and movements on the left leverage that? I'll open that up for any folks.
Well, I certainly hope it does, because I've been to many rallies. I've received many messages from constituents asking, what can we do? What can we do now? Why aren't you doing more? As if there were more than the efforts we made, even including impeachment in the House this year. And this is that moment, because it could not be more fundamental to whether our democracy continues than whether Donald Trump is able to do whatever he pleases. And he will be able to do that if he has a House that is as compliant as this one. And remember how very close it has been, passing the big ugly bill by a vote. And in the House, About the only thing the Republicans have deviated from him on of late is Jeffrey Epstein and that horror. They shut down the appropriations process. They're basically delegating the power of the purse to Trump, but they shut that down because they were so fearful of what they might find in the Jeffrey Epstein files. So this ought to be the issue that pulls us together. Everything is on the line. The odds are stacked against us, but I believe we have the potential to prevail.
And then State Senator Gounardes, I saw that we had a special guest for a second there, so I might direct this question your way. This is from our membership, Jalen in Rochester, Michigan. Young people like me are often told that voting is how we make change, but when the maps are rigged before we even cast a ballot, it feels like the game is stacked. What would you say to first-time voters who feel slightly discouraged about what's happening in Texas?
That's a great question. And in fact, that's a question I get every year from my students in my voting rights class. Every single year, they ask that question in some way, shape, or form. We just came out of an election in New York City for our Democratic primary for mayor, in which our new Democratic nominee, defied all the odds and electrified the youth electorate in ways no one thought possible. And he did it in ways that were unconventional and that mobilized people and met them where they were. It didn't rely on the same old, same old. It was not part of the status quo. It was not the same old machine operation. And it really showed in a place as inert sometimes as New York City and New York politics that fundamental change and inspiring change is absolutely possible. And so I think I would point every single young person who looks at the political system today and says, it'll never get better. Kind of think about updating that famous Bobby Kennedy quote, the good Bobby Kennedy, not the other Bobby Kennedy. Some people see the world and say why not, or why I say why not, right? You look at the opportunities we have in front of us for fundamental change if we just show up, if we just use our voices, if we can somehow, as a country, get the backs of these Texas legislators and stop this grab. That will inspire ripples of hope throughout the rest of the country so that whether you are in a red town or a blue town, whether you want to run for city council or run for Congress, that you are now empowered to say that this is your democracy too, and that you actually can mobilize to make change and to make it better. And the other thing I'll add here, because it's not all about just, the wishy-washy, hopey feelings, right? It's that karma is a thing. And even when we face a setback, we always persevere and we always stay back in the fight and we always keep pushing forward because some way, somehow, you keep pushing on those doors and a door will open and you do it enough times and enough doors will open where you can upend the system. That's what we just saw here in New York City, and I think that's the message we can take across the country.
Right. And then Representative Nixon might have been answered at the beginning of this, but what are some of the warning signs that we should see that we should start mobilizing folks in Florida, start organizing protests, get rallies going that might signal DeSantis is about to move on his redistricting plan that he has signaled at this point? And what are you going to ask of folks like us and the thousands of people watching right now to do for Florida representatives that are about to be in this fight too? You're muted, Justina.
Sorry about that. No, for sure. So I think what's important is that it ain't warning shots anymore. It's here, and they are shooting at us now. We just recently got emails and text messages from the Speaker of the House calling for a special committee on congressional redistricting. And so that happened earlier today, a few hours ago. And so it's here, right, alive and in color. And so I think what's important for folks to know is, like, especially about Florida, don't turn your back on us, right? Like, don't turn your back on the South. Project 2025 was actually Florida 2024, Florida 2023, Florida 2022, Florida 2021, and so on and so forth. A lot of these policies and horrible bills that are now making its way across our country all started in Florida. And so when we ask folks to donate to progressive movements on the ground that are doing the work, that are pushing back and fighting day in and day out, and to donate to progressive candidates that unseat incumbents like myself. When we ask you to do that, like, please do so. And, as I stated, there's so much power right now that can be taken in your homes, even outside of red states, going to social media, really spreading the word about what's happening, so that more folks can get involved. Like, we really have to raise awareness and raise the consciousness of our folks. And let's be real. The majority of our country right now don't even know what's happening in Texas, because they're worried about how they're going to be able to put food on their table, or it's time to go to school. Some of them, their kids don't even have backpacks. And so, we got to get back to old school organizing. We got to meet people where they are, not just when it's time to run for office and things like that. And when we're meeting them where they are and helping them address the needs that they have, like, they begin to trust us. They begin to listen to us. So I opened up a bookstore, and it is no coincidence that bookstore also serves as a community organizing hub and is located on the street for early voting location. But last year, during our elections, we had abortion on the ballot, right? It was no coincidence that I passed out. I gave away free Plan B, because oftentimes folks lack the access to those things. And so I give them free Plan B, and I'm able to educate them about how the folks that are in office and in power are trying to keep them down. And so those are the types of things that we have to do to really raise the awareness and consciousness of people, get back to old school organizing and meet people where they are. There's so many backpack giveaways and school supply giveaways that we need to be showing up at and letting folks know that this big bullshit bill, right, just got passed, and they're going to be negatively impacted. And in order to stop that, they have an obligation and a duty to show up next year to change the trajectory for their babies that they're trying to send to school. So that's what we need to do. And sorry, I get a little passionate, but I have 5 kids. I have 5 kids, 7 including my dog and my husband, if you want to do that. But like, I really care about my country and care about what I'm leaving them to. And so it's really important for us to have those uncomfortable conversations, bring people in, meet them where they are, so that we can take back our country and build a America for all.
Appreciate that.
Amen.
I'm going to go to one of our questions from, again, one of our members that submitted earlier, and this might be a good segue and closing remarks here. Jay from Massachusetts has said, "What gives you courage to make this stand right now? What do you say to others who might be afraid to speak up? And what do you say to the Dems in other states that might need a little bit of a push to start the fight?" Representative Doggett, I'll start with you.
Well, thank you very much. As you can tell from looking at me, I'm one of the older members of the Congress. I think we need people of all generations participating. And what has reinvigorated me more than anything else is that in my entire political life, I have never seen a time when our country was more in danger. We are on a path under Donald Trump to become a tyranny that destroys our rights, that is similar to what has gone on in some of the other countries that he admires so much, Orban in Hungary, for example, to limit our powers, to interfere with the opposition at any point and to try to undermine it. And the impact on the daily lives of people will be a country that denies opportunity to those that need it the most, that continues to shift more and more of the wealth of the country to those at the top of the economic ladder and ignores those that are trying to claw their way up into the middle class. That is what we as progressives have often opposed, but now we face a mountain of opposition from Trump in trying to assure that we turn our country around. Democracy doesn't always produce the right result, but in a democracy, we have the opportunity to correct when there is a misstep, as has occurred here. I'll just add to the closing as well that we face a real challenge to the Voting Rights Act in the United States Supreme Court. In this next term, if the Voting Rights Act Section 2 survives, it will be a near miracle. And so what is happening here is really important to provide us democratic opportunities in the House and in legislatures around the country. I hope everyone will realize they have a stake in what's involved here, support us not only in Texas and Florida, but all over the country to get some check from California on what Trump is doing. Thank you so much and all the progressives that are a part of this movement, but what you have done in showing your interest tonight.
Appreciate it. Senator Gounardes, please.
I think the congressman really hit the nail on the head about what's at stake and why this all matters and why it's important that we all show up in this moment. And thinking about as he closed and as Congressman Cassar was talking about the Voting Rights Act, what it took to get to that point, 100 years of fighting to just enshrine this basic idea that we are in fact a representative democracy and that everyone should be represented in that democracy. And we are just so quickly marching towards on a path towards authoritarianism and tyranny and fascism. These are the horror stories you read about. These are the things that are in sci-fi books, and this is kind of where we are heading. And so that's why this has never been more urgent than it is now. I know sometimes it feels dispiriting. I can see from some of the comments, people are saying, well, why can't we do this? Or why can't we do that? Or why can't we do more? We got to do all of it, right? And the way, and this is really key, we have to be focused because the way that authoritarians and dictators are able to manipulate their way into staying in power and in changing the rules to their benefit is to keep us scattered, to keep ourselves divided, to throw 10 things against the wall and hope that we get distracted by all 10 while they're really looking at a different wall altogether. And then by the time we realize what they're doing, like they're doing now, they hope that it's too late for us to change course and to actually mobilize to stop them. We all have to be focused on what's truly at stake here. We all have to be focused on how bad this is. And we have to do everything in our power at every level, whether you are an elected office, whether you are a concerned citizen, whether you're an activist, whether you never participated in politics before, whether you are 100 years old or you're 15 years old or anyone. We are all being summoned to this fight right now. And this is just the first battle in what will be a series of battles that'll be a prolonged fight for the soul of this country and the future of this country, and a real test as to whether or not we actually can uphold the values that we believe that we have been founded on 250 years ago. So I'm inspired by being in this company with you all. I take great solace in hearing from our federal leaders who are experiencing this firsthand and are helping to lead this fight for us. I take solace in what's happening not only in California, but what we're trying to do in New York and other states as well. And however you can show up in this moment, do it. If you can show up at the ballot box, be at the ballot box. If you can show up outside a courthouse, show up outside a courthouse. If you can show up on your block, show up on your block. We need all hands on deck, and we need it now. And I really want to thank you all for joining us tonight and for participating and for being in this fight with us.
Thank you so much. Representative Nixon.
Yeah, so I was in a meeting the other day with folks who have been in progressive spaces and progressive movements and organizing for like over a decade. And I got super sad when this one person stated that they no longer wanted to be in the state, and they were even thinking about like leaving our country, right? That is happening all over. And, I recognize that folks are fearful, but I want folks to realize that we've been here before, right? Some of us have been here before. Some of us have had our ancestors who had no idea that we would become, have the ability to walk freely, or they could only dream that, right? They didn't see it right then, but they were dreaming that, had no idea that they would, that I would be able to be in the official, right? I just want to, like, we are our ancestors' wildest dreams. And what we're facing right now are people who are in power and who are so upset because they see the writings on the walls and they realize that when Black people and brown people and working class folks and women and marginalized communities come together, they're fearful that if we come into power that we're going to do to them what they've done to us, for some of us, for hundreds of years. But the reality of it is like, that's not what's going to happen. The reality of it is when we come together, we lead with love. When we come together, we lead with dignity and honor and respect. And that's what brings me hope. Because again, I am my ancestors' wildest dreams. And I see my babies, and I know that everyone in our country deserves the opportunity to live healthy, to be prosperous, to feel safe. Everyone in our country deserves the opportunity to no longer just survive, but to thrive and to flourish. And so I am inviting you all not only to join us on August 16th and to get into this fight on our National Day of Action, right, to stop the Trump takeover, but I am inviting you all to remember to dream. I am inviting you all to disobey in advance and resist. I am inviting you all to resist so that we can come together and then flourish, because we deserve, again, to build an America for all.
Thank you so much. And I will just end with our folks on our team are going to be putting a thank you card in the chat here. And I would encourage folks that are watching the live stream to sign a card from the Progressive Change Campaign Committee. The link is pccc.me/thank_TX_Dems. Again, that's pCCC.me/thank_TX_Dems. They are fighting right now. They are under threat. And there's a lot of people coming after them, and they are holding on to our democracy for us. Again, please do sign that card. Stand with us, fight with us. Appreciate everybody being here today. Very, very much appreciate our distinguished guests, Congressman Doggett, Congressman Cassar, State Representative Andrew Gounardes, State Representative Angie Nixon. Thank you so much for being us here today. Thank you all for participating. And with that, we'll close. Thank you so much, guys.
Aaron.